thing anyway. Fundamentals Test 10, chapters 23 through 25 of Halderman's book. Which battery rating is most often used when testing a battery to see if it's performing normally?
Cold cranking
That's the CCA, right? And what define the cold cranking amps?
below 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
0 degrees Fahrenheit. If they go, and it's a little higher if you get it to 32, right?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that whenever the cold snap comes, some of your batteries die?
Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
when jump starting, blank. A, the last connection should be made to the positive post of the dead battery. B, the last connection should be to the engine block of the dead vehicle.
Yep.
C, the alternator must be connected on both, disconnected on both vehicles.
Nope.
Wow, that one right there is going to be a B.
B.
Some people disconnect the alternator. Now, we'll tell you this, on some of your really late model cars, they don't really like you jumping them off. They really don't. They
Gotta
just,
have the battery, so you can't, you gotta do it through the, there's like a post coming out of the relay box.
Well, that's something
Yeah. yeah, but I mean, they basically, anybody that makes a car that you can't jump off ain't thinking clearly. You know what I mean? Because sooner or later, you're going to jump one off.
Now the first connection's the positive post of dead battery, right?
Say it again now? Oh, yeah, that's what I'd do. Yeah, the first connection will be that, but really the last one.
So the negative.
Why are you making the last one to the engine block on the dead
When it
car?
sparks, it doesn't explode.
That's right. You can have some explosive gas. I was at Walmart one time and I saw these two ladies out there, and they were in this big old Crown Victoria, and they were getting ready to jump it off, and this looked like an accident waiting to happen. And so I was walking by and I said, "Why don't you ladies let me help you jump that thing off? Because this looks pretty serious." Well, let me hit you something. On this thing right here, this lady had the fender of the car right here. Here was the battery. And here was the cable was coming in at an angle like this. And it went, you know, of course you had your battery bolt right here and all that kind of stuff. This other one was just played, you know, it just went up. And this one here kept bouncing against the metal fender.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, and somebody had put some rubber there to keep that from happening, and she had a new alternator, because if you keep shorting a positive post against the fender, the alternator's trying to charge up the whole car, and it burns up the alternator. Well, before I jumped it off, I fixed that. So can you tell me how I fixed it?
Turn it.
Yeah, I loosened it up and I turned it so that it couldn't touch. And somebody was not thinking clearly. They kept putting rubber between there, and it kept banging holes in that rubber and hitting the fender. All they had to do is turn the cable,
Yep.
you know. But anyway,
Duh.
so that lady there was a lot better off by the time we got through there. All right, here we go. Let's say here, starters rotate the engine by a
Gear.
gear. What's the ratio of the starter gear to the flywheel again?
There's a ratio.
It's probably gonna be like
1 to 14.
14 to 1. Listen to you remembered what I said before, didn't you? Good memory.
Yeah, that's it.
Good memory. I can tell he don't smoke marijuana. Okay.
What?
No, yeah. All right. Smoke marijuana ruins your memory, you know. There was a guy that was a heavy pot smoker that I worked with, and he could set the timing on a vehicle. And 5 minutes later, you could ask him what the timing was set on, and he couldn't remember. 5 minutes after he said it, he couldn't remember what he said it on. But I'd check it, and it was right, because I knew he said it. But his short-term memory was just shot because he smoked too much weed. You know, I'm not here to preach against smoking weed, but I'm telling you, if you want to keep your short-term memory, your memory is really important, and you'll lose that, you know, if you're real careful.
What?
Yeah. An acceptable charging circuit voltage on a 12-volt system is what?
12 to 14?
That's, no,
12.6, 15.6?
13 and a half to 15.
That would be my third guess.
I'm sure it was. Okay. When measuring battery voltage, what do you set the meter to read?
DC volts.
DC volts, you're not going to put it on AC volts. You won't put it on hertz. What's hertz?
That's the cycle.
Cycles per second. If you were going to measure, what would you measure hertz on? What are we measuring on a car that measures hertz?
Why am I thinking an alternator? No.
say that again.
Hertz.
What is it that we're going to measure on a car that we're going to use the hertz setting on our meter? HZ, cycles per second.
Oh no, we just had it last
Is
week.
that going to be your
Some
injector pulse?
some mass airflow sensors read in hertz.
Really?
And the Bronco, the map sensor on the Bronco reads in hertz. 159 hertz with the engine not running, about 110 with it running. And if it's reading, if you check that, and the reason it's important to check that, let's say you got a Bronco like right now there, and it's running really lousy, you know, hunting idle, and like it's running real lean and all that, and you go into that thing and you measure hertz, and you, with the key just switched on and not the engine running, if you read like 140 hertz, and you'd be surprised how common that is. That's a bad sensor, and it's making it think you're at high altitude, and it's not putting as much fuel in there as it needs, because it's lying about the altitude. You see what I'm saying?
You showed me that today.
Yeah, but you got a meter that reads hertz. You got to have a meter that reads hertz. Now these little yellow ones that I got here, I'll have to get out a different one. But or you know, there are scopes will read it, will read hertz, and all that. Okay, let me see. A battery should be charged at what rate?
This gonna be.
Ooh, listen to that. You never heard this question before, did you?
No,
This gonna be
I'm gonna go
B
with
or
B.
C.
D.
B and C. You want to get a rate of 1% of the CCA rating of the battery and a rate that does not cause the battery to get hotter than 125 degrees. If you just do that with reckless abandon, I'm going to tell you something. When I was at this school up there learning about these hybrid batteries, and hybrid batteries usually have about 100,000 miles, you got to either have your battery rebuilt or replaced in a hybrid vehicle. Well, there's one guy that was an instructor at a college similar to this one, except they had a classroom that was kind of upstairs, you know, in another mezzanine thing up there. And he said one of the students hooked a battery charger up that was made to charge the hybrid battery. And it's basically got a laptop that you control the charger with. The battery charger is almost as big as this desk, only it's about half as tall. But you hook this thing up, he hooked it up, and he just turned it on for like 4 hours or something, which you're never supposed to do that. I mean, you're actually supposed to have a real, you know, it's supposed to scale down as it charges and all that kind of stuff. And it was one of these Toyota batteries like the one I got out here, a hybrid battery. And he said that guy put that battery charger on, and he says that they were up there in that classroom. There was nobody in the shop whatsoever. And that battery charger was hooked up, and it had been on for like 2.5 or 3 hours. And that hybrid battery exploded.
Wow.
And he said, and it literally sounded like somebody came in there with an AK-47. He said that's what it sounded like. And he says, so they came down there, and he says, and these big rods that run across the top of the battery and hook the end plates together to keep the battery pack, you know, from swelling up. He said they never found those.
Oh,
They didn't have no idea where they went. They looked under every car. They were looking to see if maybe they had, you know, gone. And he says, and the end plate on one end, they never found that. They don't know where it went. But imagine what that would have been like if you'd had a group of students standing around that battery when it blew up.
No kidding.
I mean, it would have took a bunch of them out like a grenade. You know what I mean? Now, we had this little air compressor that was on a trailer when I was working down at Sabine Offshore. And we had a battery on there that was mounted on there. And it was a crummy little Delco battery that was a sort of a small one. And the starter, they had an electric starter on that Wisconsin engine that was on that air compressor. And one of the guys just hooked a battery charger up and put it on high. And that thing was charging. It was kind of set over in a corner by itself charging. And nobody was paying any attention to it until the battery exploded, not one time, but 3. It was like each cell, boom! It sounded like somebody lit off a shotgun in there, and then boom! And it sounded like another one, boom! 3 explosions come out of the battery. Why? Because they had it on high charge hold and just walked away.
Oh my goodness.
Ignorance, you know what I'm saying? They didn't think about that, you know? So the long and the short of it is, you be careful when you're charging a battery, just cramming it on there and turning it on high and walking away. That don't get a job done. If you're gonna leave it on hold, put it on a really low state of charge and let it trickle. Because these chargers got a bunch of different settings on them. And these big chargers, boy, they'll sure push some juice in there too. And you need to be watching to make sure it don't go over 15.5, because if it's going over 15.5, you're wasting your time anyway. Okay, let's do this. Let me see. Cold cranking amps refers to the current a battery produces while sustaining 7.2 volts at what temperature?
I'm gonna go with 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Sounds good to me. Technician A says navigation systems use cell phone tower information to locate a vehicle on streets and highways. Technician B says the system uses satellites. Which technician is correct?
B.
That's actually B, but some of these, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody's probably going to call me down about this, I believe Nzone Star uses cell towers for them to locate you. I mean, somebody had told me that. I don't remember. I may be wrong about that. Don't quote me. Well, never mind. Look at this, number 9. Goofy me. Nzone Star uses digital cellular phone service, automatic airbag deployment notification, and GPS information.
Oh,
You see, Bruce Willis on Die Hard or Live Free or Die Hard. This kid gets out of the car and grabs something and whacks the front of the car, and it makes the airbag light off. That's pretty dumb. You're not gonna make that happen. You're not gonna hit something hit the car with something and make the airbag light off. The car has to be stopping. I mean, it has to hit something itself to do that. You ain't gonna bang it, like that. I mean, not the bumper. I mean, I guess if you whack the daggum sensor itself, you might make it happen. But he just hit the bumper and it bled off. And but anyway, let's see.
That's all of them?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, he uses everything. Well, that's D. 9 is D. He uses digital cell phone service, automatic airbag deployment, and GPS information. How far away from the Earth are the GPS satellites?
Way up there.
27,000 miles. And the Earth is only 8,000 miles in diameter. So it's 3 times the diameter of the Earth, and they're up there. Now, the internet satellites are up about 400 miles for latency purposes. But the other ones,
You said it's how far up there?
27,000 miles. They're way up there.
That's up there a little bit.
Well, the International Space Station ain't but 250, 250.
I know. It's pretty darn
That's
close.
crazy.
If you were in the space station, would you want to be farther away than 250 miles? I mean, you want to be able to walk home if you have to. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, 27,000 miles is how far they are. Google that and just see what it comes up with. I ain't talking about right now. I know you get your smartphone. Okay. Let me see. If maintenance reminder light comes on, it means the owner should do what?
I'd say all of them.
Well,
Just because.
sort of.
That's what I said too.
Yeah, have the air filter replaced, the oil changed, tires rotated. But I will tell you this, on some of the older vehicles, and it's sort of moot now because the older vehicles are all really old. On some of our old Fords, there was an orange light that would come on, even before we had a check engine light, that would say, maintenance. And what you were supposed to do, they wanted you to take it to the dealer, and they wanted the dealer to get on there and check and make sure your emissions were all working like they were supposed to and all that. Now listen to this. This gets interesting. They also had, and this thing was a little brown box, and it basically had a timer in it. It wasn't measuring miles on that one, but there was a little button that was inside that box. You peel a little sticker off, and you stick a little screw or something in there, and you could feel that button go click. You push that button, you turn the key on, and while you were holding the button, and it would reset that light. All right, on Volkswagen Rabbits, there would be an oxygen sensor light that would come on at about 60,000 miles. What you're supposed to do on that one was pull the cover off the dash, and it had a little piece of wire with a hook on it, and you reach way down in one of the little holes, and there was a little lever in there, and you pull that lever to go click, and then it would reset that light. All right, on Jeep Cherokees and Comanches, they had a little clear box with a bunch of gears in it and a little timer that would run in these gears. And when it reached to a certain amount of miles, it would turn on that little maintenance light. So this is where I'm going with that. If you see a maintenance light, make darn sure you know what the maintenance light is for, because it's not for the same thing on everybody's car. You see, the maintenance required light, and on your Chrysler products, it has to be turned off with a scan tool. It's turned on by the PCM, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's an oil change due or anything like that. So just make sure you know what that light means. You got me? Also, here's something else, guys. Don't put a car out of the shop with a maintenance light still on if you've done a service on it, because they don't like looking at that, okay? Somebody's got an annoying warning light. They don't look at that. What should the driver do if the TPMS warning lamp comes on steady?
Ooh.
Some vehicles need to have the spare tire checked, check inflation pressure of all tires, use the pressure printed on the decal near the driver's door for the specified pressure, or all of the above. Now, yesterday, we were sitting here, and there's one of these students that works at the Honda place. He's a dual enrollment student. He said that he had one that was beating him up because the tire pressure light was on, and all the tires had 40 pounds of pressure in them. He said he was supposed to have 32, so he dropped it back down to 32, didn't change the doggone thing, and it turned out the spare tire had a TPMS sensor in it, and he had to set the air in the spare.
No way.
And that's on a Honda. Now, you won't usually find that on most cars. Okay. Most of them don't have a one in the spare. All right, there's a 2007 Corolla that Joy used to drive, the lady from up front, one of them, little red car. She's got a different car now. But the TPMS on that one did not have sensors in the tires, but it would know if one of the tires was low. Now, how did it know if one of the tires was low if it didn't have sensors in the tires? Alex?
Was it like a balance type thing?
Well, you're a little closer than you think. It would measure the rolling speed of all the tires with the wheel speed sensors. Because if you've got a tire that's low on air, it rolls a little faster than one that's not, apparently. You wouldn't think it would, but it does. Because Ford did that back in the mid-90s. Some of their vehicles would measure the rolling speed of the tire. Toyota did that in '07 on the little Toyota, whatever the Sam Hill this thing was. Strange little car. Wasn't a Corolla, wasn't a Camry. What is that funky looking little slick car that Toyota makes? It's
Sydney? No.
No, it's a Honda.
What did Toyota make?
It's a strange name on that little Toyota. I can't think of the name of that car. Was it a Solara or something?
Laura?
Yeah, one of those. Anyway, that's what she was driving. So remember that. If it don't have, we actually put tires on it for her one time, and I don't remember. She came back and she was talking about it. The tire pressure warning light come on. I didn't even know she had tire pressure warning because there was no sensors in the tires. And we checked, and I think one of them was down a little bit. Wasn't down much. It was really surprising.
So where are the sensor located in the tire?
On the valve stem. If you see a valve stem, usually, not every time, if you see a valve stem that's got a metal nut holding this metal valve stem on, that's a sensor. The sensor in my pickup truck is banded to the middle of the rim. It's actually a thing that's looks like a piece of banding material around the center of the rim, and the skinny part of the drop center part of the rim, it's in there. All right, and those things, the only time those sensors wake up and start talking is when they have air pressure, and that turns them on. See, so they're not laying on the shelf and run their little batteries down. Got me? All right, but you're usually, some of them have got a rubber valve stem, but on the bottom of that rubber valve stem, it's got a tire pressure monitor sensor. So if you're breaking tires down that have tire pressure monitor, make sure you're 15 minutes away from the valve stem every time you run that little bead breaker in there, because you don't want to damage that. All right, so let's see. How does the change in the size of the tires affect the speedometer rating? A smaller diameter tire causes the speedometer to read slower than the actual speed and less than the actual mileage. B, a smaller diameter tire causes the speedometer to read faster than actual speed and more than actual mileage on the odometer. C, a larger diameter tire causes the speedometer to read faster than the actual speed. And D, a larger diameter tire causes the speedometer to read slower than the actual speed and more than the actual mileage on the odometer.
I'm gonna go with B.
Only one of those is right, and that's B. Okay, if somebody came to you, and this is pretty easy nowadays, what if they hand you a ticket and you're working at a shop, they say the speedometer is inaccurate?
Check the size of the tires.
What the heck are you going to do about that? Well, to begin with, I want to see if it's really inaccurate. I had a guy come in there and he says, I got a ticket, and according to my speedometer, I wasn't speeding, but the guy said I was.
You get on the
So you gonna
interstate.
check and make sure all four
And he
tires
says,
are
he
the
told
same?
me to come and have y'all check it, and if you could verify that the speedometer was off, I wouldn't have to pay the ticket.
You get on the interstate, you set the cruise control to 60, and you time yourself from mile marker to mile marker. 60 seconds.
That's right. That's the way I do it. I would get on that. And I was driving this Tempo one time that this girl said it was making road noise that she wasn't used to on most cars she drove. So I headed off toward Ozark on that thing, between Dothan and Ozark. I headed off up that way, watching those mile markers. And I noticed before I got very far into that process that I was passing other cars like I was on a rocket sled. And I thought, good grief, what's up with this? And when I clocked the speedometer, it was saying 60 and I was running 85.
Sweet.
And I said, how in the world did she get away without having a ticket? You know what I mean? I mean, because she'd owned it a month. She'd been driving all over the place on that thing, just driving like a rocket sled on rails. But anyway, the long and the short of it was I had to put a speedometer in the car. Sometimes you can change if on the newer ones you can actually change, like on your truck. If it's not right, you can actually go in there with that little scan tool we got, the little one in the gray box, and you can go in there and tell it, or the IDS that we've got, and you can tell it what the tire pressure, the tire size and the differential ratio is, and you can make it read right just by changing the equation in the computer, and it's made to do that. Technician A says the bulb trade number is the same for all bulbs of the same size. Technician B says the dual filament bulb has different candle power ratings for each filament.
Huh?
Who's right about that?
Right.
Yeah. Now, what's wrong with the term candle power? We don't use that anymore.
What's a candle?
Well, we don't, incidentally, I got your flashlight and your hat in there on my desk. 'Cause
Sweet.
you left it in the, on the towel dispenser in the bathroom. So I figured you
I
might.
put it somewhere.
Yeah, I got it, it's on my desk in there. Let's see, the dual filament, what do we use now instead of candle power? Used to, it was candle power, what do we use
It
now?
was.
Lumens,
That's right.
that's what we use now, we use lumens. The letters NA and a light bulb,
What was your answer?
huh? Oh, on 13, what'd you get, C?
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Letters NA and a light bulb trade number mean what?
Natural amber.
Yeah, natural amber, listen to the parts guy, he knows what he's talking about. Number 15, which type of headlight has a blue color? How about a
Xenon.
high intensity discharge xenon?
Okay.
That's the blue ones.
You guys ever take a timing light apart?
Tried not to.
Yeah, I took a timing light apart. When my timing light quit working, I take it apart and try to figure out what was going on. And over there on one end of that board, there's a little exciter coil. It's got a xenon bulb in it. A timing light is a high intensity discharge light, basically is what it is. It basically is it's a electricity going through it, and it's just instantaneous when it flashes. The problem with that is, let's say you hook it up to something, and you pull the trigger on that thing, and one of my cohorts did the same thing too before I could warn him about it. That thing's got an exciter coil in there. It's about like an ignition coil.
Uh-oh.
And I pulled the trigger on that thing, and I had my hand too close to that thing, and it reached out and got me. It knocked the ever-loving daylights out of it. Because, I mean, that's some heavy-duty voltage, like 40, 50, 60,000 volts, you know. And it's just a little donut exciter coil. It's really interesting, and I'm sure they got a little capacitor in there, kind of like a point and condenser thing. Okay, let's see. Technician A, a technician has replaced an 1157 NA with an 1157 A bulb. What's most likely the result?
Oh, come on. Are you serial?
Yeah, the amber color of the bulb is a different shade. Let me tell you something that I learned, and you might not think this is so. Let's say that you want to have just one bulb for all four corners of the vehicle. And you know, some of them come in, they got clear lenses, and you're going to put an amber bulb in there, right? And let's say that
Some of them-
all you've got is a big wad of amber bulbs. You know, I mean, they'll plug in everywhere, but you've blown a tail light, you know, or a stoplight or something back there. Is it okay to put an amber bulb back there?
It'll still work.
I'll tell you something else. Not only will it still work, you can't tell the difference between it and a clear one. Because that red lens on that light is so doggone, that surprised me. The lady next door had a blown bulb. I said, well, all I got is this amber one. Let's see what it looks like. And you couldn't tell that it was any different. And it ain't hurting nothing as long as it lights up. Okay. What's used for daytime running lights? What's used for daytime running lights?
Parking lights.
What is the purpose of daytime running lights? Let me back
People
up.
can see you.
For people can see you. It ain't so you can see. It's so people can see you. And in Canada, it's the law for everybody to have them.
Really?
But in here, I read that somewhere. But here, you know, General Motors put them on all. But you know these little lights on the front of the truck on these new Chevrolet trucks that I say they new, they're old now. This 2001 Chevrolet pickup truck that Gene drives. That's something we always forget to check when we're doing vehicle inspections. You know, because when you back out there and put it in drive with your foot on the brake, those daytime running lights come on automatically. You can't turn them on. They're basically turned on by the lights. Now you can shine a light, you know, but it's got to be in gear. You got to have your foot on the brake. All those, and it's for 45 seconds it takes usually, or a minute for them to pop on. That's just a plain little old 11 or 3157 bulb. That's all it is. So we know that one there. That's what I always, you know, draw from that. So it's all of them.
So it's B then.
Yeah, it's any
All
of
of
them.
them.
A defective brake switch could prevent proper operation of what?
All of them.
Shift interlock, cruise control, ABS brakes. Occasionally you'll see people that, on a lot of cars, listen to this fellas, not all of them. Somebody will call and say, I can't get my car out of park. All right, now if they try to muscle it out of park, they're gonna break something and it's gonna be expensive to fix. But on most cars, not all of them, there's different ways. Some of them have got a little release here in the console. All right, some of them will say here, you'll say, turn the key if it's a stoplight problem. First I'm gonna say is see if the stoplights work. If the stoplights don't work, that's what you need to do. Fuse blown, whatever. If the stoplights don't work and you want to drive it just to get it out of the road or whatever, you can turn it to the key usually to the position where the steering wheel is not locked, but your warning lights are not on the dash either. There's a in between. You got me? There's an in between on that. So you turn it there, and then you can put it in neutral, and then you can start it, and then you can drive it. Of course, I wouldn't recommend anybody driving it very far without stoplights.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It'd be bad news. Technician replaced one high-intensity discharge light due to road damage. Which is the most likely result? The headlight color will be different, right? Also, this Weldon guy, that brought his old Cadillac over here, the high-intensity discharge module for those Cadillac headlights on that one he had are down in the bottom of the headlight assembly. So when the headlight starts to sweat, it actually runs down in the bottom of the headlight assembly and destroys that module.
Who designed that?
Brilliant. I don't have a clue. But they do have Cadillacs, that same year model, that don't have high-intensity discharge lights in them. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you can actually just take those headlights out and put regular headlights in there and they'll work just fine. You just need to replace them both.
Somebody wanting to make some money.
Yeah. The headlights are properly aimed when they point straight ahead on high beam. Is that true?
I don't think so.
It is. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be,
Straight
guys.
ahead.
Yeah, straight ahead.
I thought one of them
If
had-
you, and there is a headlight aiming worksheet out there that you guys need to be aware of that's really smart. You guys worked with that, Alex, didn't you? The headlight aiming stuff? Then what did you learn on that?
Over there when we did it on the Crown Vic.
Mhm. What piece of
It ain't-
advice
it
would,
ain't- It ain't as easy as it look, I can tell you that.
after you kind of get used to it though, you can set it up real smooth, you know? But if you put new headlight assemblies on a vehicle, you need to set up, some of them you can't use a tool. Some of them you basically gotta look and see where they're pointing. 25 feet from the wall, line that thing up straight, and you're gonna measure straight and level and pointing the same way the car points. You don't want them looking this way or that, you want them straight ahead and you want them the same height as the lights, okay? Now then, time to move to another test.